Have you ever heard of the term nigga wake-up call?
No.
It is an incident where a person of color forgets that they are of color and are reminded rather brutally by an unexpected act of racism. Have you ever had any of those?
Brother. Well, I'm acutely aware that I'm a black person, just as you are a black person. And when Joe Biden insulted you by saying, you ain't really black, we don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump, it seems to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part. How dare this guy come in here and insult you, a black man, and tell you, you got to think a certain kind of way. I'm amazed that you weren't mad about that.
I'm not gonna say it upset me, just like I'm not letting you upset me. You know what I mean? I don't tend to get upset over things like that. But what I did say,
well, you just not talk about a nigga wake-up call, and it seemed to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part.
All right, folks. Well, today we got to react to this video of Larry Elder going back and forth with quote-unquote Charlamagne the God. He calls himself a god. He thinks he's a god. He's obviously, as you will see in this clip, the furthest thing from a god. He's actually just a fool and a clown. But regardless, if you're totally unfamiliar, Vince, who is Charlamagne the God? Charlamagne is the host of The Breakfast Club, and I think the best way to describe him, the guy that Larry Elder's debating here, is not so much that he's your generic woke liberal. There are plenty of those, but I think Charlamagne is kind of something of one of those black power guys, right? And so he will actually take this anti-establishment sort of populist stance of, actually, both parties are racist. Neither party cares about black people, right? But then very ironically, despite that whole Black Panther mentality, at the end of the day, every single time, he will always stump for Democrats. He will always vote for Democrats and support Biden, right? So I think the whole thing is kind of a ruse in many ways, but that is your description of Charlamagne, a big black power kind of guy. Of course, it is ironic that he calls himself Charlamagne and then claims to be all about black power and black history, because if you know anything about the real Charlamagne the Conqueror, you will know he was a white guy, okay? The real Charlamagne was, the founder of the Holy Roman Empire, but, I guess history, right, is not exactly these people's strong suits, and so that shouldn't be surprising to anyone. Anyways, with that said, folks, today, like I said, we are going to be reacting to Larry Elder absolutely destroying Charlamagne the God on the debate over black politics. But before we get into today's reaction video, really quickly, I do need to tell you about our sponsors today over at Noble Gold Investments. Folks, did you know that the US dollar has lost 85% of its value since the 1970s when we went off of the gold standard? And if you live and work in this country, you know all about Bidenomics. You know that the US dollar continues to lose its value by the day. And with the BRICS countries now going off of the US dollar as their reserve currency, it's only going to get worse, which is why you need to protect your savings, investments, and retirement with history's time-tested, stable asset, which is, of course, gold. And do so, invest in gold, and protect your savings and retirement with our friends today over at Noble Gold Investments, okay? Protect your retirement with their signature gold or precious metals IRA, and find out about other ways to protect your savings with gold. And be sure to do so using my affiliate link. Check them out at VinceDaoGold.com. Again, that is VinceDaoGold.com. Protect your savings, protect your retirement, get gold, invest in gold at VinceDaoGold.com. All right, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into today's reaction video. Here is Larry Elder versus Charlamagne the God and the epic exchange that ensues. Check it out.
Have you ever heard of the term nigga wake-up call?
No.
It is an incident where a person of color forgets that they are of color and are reminded rather brutally by an unexpected act of racism. Have you ever had any of those?
Brother.
I'm just asking. You think you've ever had
I'm acutely aware.
So right off the gate, if you didn't catch that, it's a passive-aggressive shot at Larry Elder, right? He's basically trying to call Larry Elder an Uncle Tom. Do you even know that you're black? Why do you act so white? And so just want to point that out. Very bad faith question, by the way. Very not so nice way to start an exchange. But here's Larry Elder's response to that.
You think you've ever
Well, I'm acutely aware, Charlamagne, that I'm a black person, just as you are a black person. And when Joe Biden insulted you by saying, you ain't really black, we don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump, it seems to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part. How dare this guy come in here and insult you, a black man, and tell you, you got to think a certain kind of way. I'm amazed that you weren't mad about that.
Right, because if you remember the whole you ain't black thing, remember Joe Biden went out and said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. That happened on this show. Okay, that he said that to Charlamagne on the Breakfast Club, for people who forget. And what was Charlamagne's response? Well, he didn't really care. He didn't really say anything, which shows you everything, right? Proves my point about how all he will ever do, despite all of the revolutionary rhetoric, all he is just a shill for the Democrats at the end of the day. Because, you know, if he was really about what he claims to be about, you know, you're not going to insult black people, you're not going to push the black community around, then he would have been very insulted by that, by what Joe Biden said. But of course, he just sits there and takes it because he is what I said he is. But anyways, let's take a listen to his Cope answer here.
I'm not gonna say it upset me, just like I'm not letting you upset me. You know what I mean? I don't tend to get upset over things. Well, what I did say.
Well, you just not talk about a nigger wake up call, and it seemed to me that should have been a wake up call on your part to have a white guy come in here who also said, by the way, about Mitt Romney. Because he didn't want to put more regulations on Wall Street, going to put y'all back in chains. And Joe Biden has lied for decades about his civil rights record, claiming that he desegregated movie theaters and restaurants in Wilmington, Delaware, when he didn't do any of that. He lied and said that he tried to visit Nelson Mandela during apartheid South Africa. He did not. And he came in here and told you aren't even black and let you think a certain kind of way. It seemed to me that should have been a nigga wake-up call for you, but it wasn't, apparently.
Yeah, I mean,
it wasn't, like I said, because he would just always make excuses. And of course, what does he say? I wasn't insulted by it. Oh, it's okay, Biden. We all know, and this is not news to anyone, but we all know if a Republican came on the Breakfast Club and said that, Charlamagne would be like, what'd you say? You know, what, right? But of course, like I said, despite all the populist rhetoric, he's just a Democrat at the end of the day. And he's going to give you the same attitude of all of them, you know? So there you go.
For the record, I'm not a Democrat or Republican.
Which is what he says. I'm not a Democrat or Republican. See my point, though? See the point that I'm getting at here?
I didn't say you were.
Yeah, I think both.
I don't know what you are. I never even asked you about your party affiliation. Yeah, I'm just saying you, but you are black. And to have a white guy come in here and tell you have to say, think a certain kind of way, otherwise you, quote, ain't black. Wow.
How should I have replied to him, you think?
What I just now said, how dare you insult me and tell me I think as a human being, let alone as a black person? I don't tell you how to think, Joe Biden. How dare you come in here and tell me how I should think? I'm going to vote for Donald Trump if I want to vote for Donald Trump. And if I want to vote for Donald Trump, it does not make me not black. 20% of black people, black men, as I said, voted for Donald Trump in 2020. Are they not black now? So only 80% of black people, black men walking around are really black, 20% are not because they voted for Donald Trump. How insulting is that? How condescending is that?
I mean, you're probably right, but I didn't take it in that way.
Well, I did.
As I said to him in that moment, you know, it's just about me wanting something for my people. And I want to know, what is he going to do for my people? And not only for my people now, how are you going to atone for the things you've done to my people?
Right.
That's it.
Right. And this is a guy, Joe Biden, who, when he first got into the Senate, hung out with segregationists, talked about how well he got along with them, talked about how he didn't want integration because of a jungle. This guy has made all sorts of insulting things to black people, and his policies right now are hurting black people. Inflation hurts the people at the bottom more than anything else. Letting a bunch of illegal aliens into the border are hurting black people more than anybody else, as I said earlier. He's opposed to school choice when he has his own kids in private school, and we lost a year, almost 2 years of in-school education in California because of COVID that he supported. I mean, this guy has done monstrous things to black people, and then for him to come in here and tell you how you ought to think as a black person, it blew my mind.
As a person objectively who doesn't care about either party.
Yeah, he doesn't care about either party, right? Which is why he only makes constant excuses for one party and only constantly attacks the other one, right? I'm sure, huh, buddy? Of course. So, you know, that was a great clip by Larry Elder. Obviously, he did a good job, you know, turning the question on its head, silencing the lib, whatever you want to call it. But I think at the same time, that clip kind of goes to show you that you just can't reach people like Charlamagne, right? Because the thing is, especially with him, no matter how much he claims to be, you know, I'm not Republican or Democrat, I'm just whatever, right? He is a Democrat, okay? And part of the problem is that you can make, like Larry Elder does, any of the rational arguments for why black people should vote Republican or support conservative policies or whatever. You can say, well, Joe Biden's inflation is not good for black people. You know, education, you know, the reason why black schools in the inner city are failing is because of liberal policies, at least partially, right? You can say that the Democrats want to give black people the fish and all the free money, but they won't teach them how to fish. All these level-headed conservative arguments that if you sit down and listen to them, you think, oh, that probably makes sense. Here's the problem, though, is that people like Charlamagne, like I said, do not care, right? At the end of the day, he is controlled opposition, because regardless of all the big game he talks about, how, what are you going to do for black people? And sometimes he'll challenge Democrats. He'll say, well, Democrats, what are you guys doing for black people? But at the end of the day, what is he always going to do? As you see in the clip, he is always going to, at the end of the day, make excuses for Democrats and ultimately vote for Democrats, right? So it doesn't matter what Larry Elder says. It doesn't matter what anyone goes on the Breakfast Club and says, because Charlamagne, someone like Charlamagne, barring a miracle from God, right? Someone like that's never truly going to change. And I think that's the issue. They're always going to be liberals. They're always going to vote for Democrats. And, you know, I think you see even in the opening question there that he asked to Larry Elder, and I'm sure a lot of black conservatives can relate to this, which is that, you know, regardless of how disaffected people like Charlamagne feel about Democrats and liberals and all that, at the end of the day, to them, the idea, no matter how bad it gets, the idea of being a black conservative is reprehensible. Okay. And you see that by the way Larry Elder gets treated, not just by Charlamagne the God, but by a lot of the black community. And if any of you conservative black people out there watching this video, you can attest to that. I'm sure you're familiar, right? What happens when you come out as conservative or Republican to your friends, to your family? It is a visceral, hostile reaction. Like more so than I think happens in other cultural groups. It is like the worst, right? And I've witnessed it, not obviously myself, but I've seen it happen. I see how it goes. And of course, this is the problem. This is the problem. I think this is part of why, despite all of the efforts that Republicans have made, you know, in terms of stuff like Blexit and kind of an outreach to the black community. And yeah, when you really think about it, all this illegal immigration isn't helping the black inner city, you know? Black people don't agree with the rainbow flag movement. All these different arguments you would think make sense, or economic opportunity, all of it. I think this mentality, this hard head that Charlamagne and people like him have, is a big reason why I think Republicans are so just driven away immediately the moment we try to make an outreach to the black community. And I think Larry Elder's trying his best. I think people like him are trying his best. Obviously, it's good that he's on the show, at least sharing his perspective, and, you know, hopefully it reaches someone. But truthfully, I think this is part of the problem, is that I don't know how you get around the hard head of people like Charlamagne. I don't know how you get around the fact that he is disingenuous. Right? Because like I said, he claims to be about black power, but he always, and he says both parties are racist, but he still votes for the Democrats that he claims are racist anyway. So what do you do about that? How do you get through to someone like that? They're not acting in good faith. They don't want to respond to rationality that, you know, Larry Elder is bringing to the table. So truthfully, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know if it's even... Obviously, we should try with everyone, but I don't know if en masse people like Charlamagne are even the type of people it's worth trying to win over the votes of, right? Because it's just like, what do you do? What do you do with that mentality? You know, they're not consistent. They're not logical. They're not, none of the grounds you can use. It just doesn't work. I don't know. But with that said, folks, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Because I'm at the point, I watch stuff like this, I'm like, that guy's a lost cause. But maybe not. Maybe there's a path. Maybe there's a path to reach him. So let me know what you think about that in the comment section down below. What you think of the debate. Who do you side with, all of that stuff? Again, let me know. And before you go, folks, everyone be sure to follow me on social media. Okay, all my links to do so are in the description. Subscribe to the Rumble channel. And of course, be sure to leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Consider joining the channel membership for exclusive perks and content. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, alpha moves only. God bless. Be sure to check out our friends at thevincedao.com, and peace. See you guys later.